Hey, thank you guys for coming out.
Yeah, thank you all for being here.
Especially on time. So this is going to be the intro to tech. It's a little tech talk that we've all put together. We're going to kind of go over it, but first I wanted to introduce myself and the host and the other presenter. So my name is Mark Miller, for those of you guys who don't know me. Kind of give you a little background of my coding experience. So in college I was a quantitative finance major. I'd always been really interested in math and coding, not necessarily coding, and like statistics. So went to college, I want a job on Wall Street. So I had an internship up on Wall Street, and yeah, it was pretty cool. I liked it, but I didn't really feel fulfilled. So it wasn't until my senior year that I really started getting into coding. I was taking a class called Fin 405, which we were pricing financial options using C++. And yeah, I just remember being like, oh, these finance principles are cool, but this coding is so much cooler. We were doing something that would take days, like months for a person to do in like 3 seconds to price an option. And from then on out, I just learned how to code. So senior year, I was probably doing majority just self-learning, learning how to code. I'd never taken a computer science class. And then immediately after graduation, I went to boot camp, which was a 12-week program where they take you from minimal coding knowledge to full stack developer. And we'll get into what that means. But yeah, ever since then, I've just been full head-on coding tech. I go to a lot of meetups, I go to a lot of startups. I work as a full stack developer for Solution Street. And most recently, I took a class at General Assembly where I learned machine learning and data science. So basically what I'm trying to tell you guys is that I don't care how old you are. Like, you can be any age. It is never too late to learn how to code. And if you're starting younger, great. You are going to excel. It's a language of the future, and it's something you should definitely learn.
I'm Forrest Wilson. I'm the president of Teamesteem, and really happy to be here. We thought this was really important to have a workshop on tech and programming because of the implications technology is having on the workforce. And it's just one of those things when trying to think about, I mean, I had a very similar background to Mark. I graduated from college and took a job in finance, and I just got interested in more entrepreneurial things, and then realized that the biggest projects in entrepreneurship are in software, and that there's a saying, software is eating the world. It's the truth. I mean, everything is being automated. We're going to talk a lot about the implications these technologies are having on the economy, but I want to be relevant in the future. I want to be able to create technology that can have an impact, and so I believe things like this are important. So we put it together today. And also thank you to our host, Carl, one of the Teamesteem co-founders. If you want to say anything real quick.
Carl Agravi, most of you guys know me. I was a finance major in college, but I work here at PricewaterhouseCoopers, consulting in the capital markets for banks, private equity firms, hedge funds. But I think technology is so important in today's world. I mean, I work in finance, but I'm seeing the implications of technology every day throughout all our client engagements, throughout all the work we do. I think it's just becoming so prevalent. And everyone, no matter what industry you're in, you need to understand technology. You need to understand how these things work, because it's the way of the future, right? It's inevitable. Like artificial intelligence, machine learning, that's going to be around for a long time, and it's only going to grow and grow. So if we can get on the ground early and start learning it now, we'll be well ahead of the gang and moving forward and learning about technology. So excited to be here.
So this is going to be a very interactive presentation. So if you don't know something, if I say something that you don't understand, raise your hand. Yeah. I will call on you. I'm going to breeze through a lot of terms that you guys should not know. And I'm sorry, but when I say them, just be like, hey, Mark, what does that mean? And I'll explain it like I'm in the industry. So since it is going to be interactive, I haven't prepared you guys for this, but I want to just kind of go around the room, like I don't know, a minute?
Yeah, a minute.
And tell us something, where you're from.
Your name.
Your name. Your name, where you're from, and a fun fact about yourself and why you're here.
And then what's your favorite
app?
What's your favorite app and why?
Yeah.
Because it's that's pretty relevant. Yeah.
So since we didn't do the fun facts, start.
Fun fact, I'm from Estonia. I'm fluent in Estonian. I go back to visit the homeland twice a year, see my family. I love Europe. I'm all about the entrepreneurial scene over there too, trying to interact with startups and companies over there. And then my favorite app would be, I'm more of a Bumble guy. I used to be a Tinder guy, but I transitioned over. So yeah, I'm all about Bumble these days.
Forrest, let's see. Fun fact. What is a fun fact? Wow, I'm a pretty boring person.
Yeah.
You're not a pretty boring person.
Fun fact. Mark and I partnered up on a company together. He is the technical co-founder for my app for me, and that happened yesterday. So, fun fact.
That's the funnest.
The funnest fact. My favorite app is called Slack. If this is new to me, but I think Slack is like the coolest thing that's ever happened in my life. So, but my favorite app will be Ours when it hits the App Store next week. So, there you go.
Yeah, my name is Mark Miller from Alexandria, Virginia. What was
Fun fact. Favorite app.
Fun fact. I haven't had a sweet in 5 years. I don't eat sugar. Let's see. And favorite app. All right, I'm gonna sway away from technology. Settlers of Catan. I play it way too much. You want to start?
Yeah. My name is Dalyar Churin. I was from Uzbekistan and moved to the United States when I was 3. And my favorite app, I guess, would be Snapchat. I'm on it like almost ever.
My name is Hugh Tilson. Favorite app? I like the calculator app.
Smart.
Yeah.
What'd you say? Out of my money?
Count my stacks.
Fun fact? Fun fact, I like to go out and play basketball with my friends.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Who's gonna win, Cavs or Warriors?
Cavs instead.
Whoa.
Oh.
Hot takes, hot takes.
Yes,
You're gonna need a calculator app to add up the money. You're gonna lose the mark on that bet.
Yeah, so my name is also Mark, but my real name is Marcus. If you guys want to call me Marcus for easier, that'd be cool. I'm from Maryland. I go to University of Maryland right now. Favorite app is probably Medium, just because like I've never been interested in reading articles before that app came out. Also, fun fact, I love sloths. They're the best animal ever. Some people call me Sloth.
I can see that.
Good stuff, good stuff.
Alright, my name is Evan Hammond. Favorite app, Twitter. I'm always on it. I just changed my major from bio to IT, so very interested.
There you go.
There we go.
Today.
Fun fact.
Fun fact, I have a twin brother.
Awesome.
Okay guys, I'm Sam, SD to some, Hammond. Fun fact, I'm usually never 30 minutes late to events like this. Favorite app would be Uber, because I'm 19 and I still don't drive, so that's how I get around. And we're from Alexandria.
Nice.
Hello everyone, I'm Randall Broby. Fun fact, I like to dance. Favorite app. I don't really have a favorite app, but if I had to choose one, I guess I'd go with Bleacher Report, big sports guys.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Hi everybody, my name is Daniel. I'm from Virginia. My favorite app is my banking app. Because, I like to know what I've been spending and depositing checks and stuff. I don't like going to the bank. So,
Is that Mint?
yeah, I've got Mint and then my PNC one. So they're both
Virtual wallet.
Yeah, they're pretty great.
Nice.
So, fun fact about me, Jell-O is my least favorite food. Nothing that you should eat should ever move like that.
So it's a texture thing, not a flavor thing.
Yeah, I just can't do it. Not a big fan.
Cool.
Good
Nice.
stuff. So it's interesting he mentioned that one of the trends I'm seeing in my work is that millennials hate going to banks, right? They hate the retail branches. So the presence and the growth of online banking is a huge trend we're seeing, and there are some banks and online lenders, they have no physical branches. It's all online. It's all through the app. So guys like Lending Club, Prosper, Social Finance, I'll talk about those later, but those are really growing and clients are seeing a lot of interest in that sort of growing online lending space. So it's big theme going on right now.
And also, there used to be human beings who would sit down and look through all the metrics on whether or not you would be worthy of credit, and now softwares do that.
Algorithms are just running based off all these metrics. So your credit score, right now they're even starting to look at social media. I mean, I'm not sure how they're parsing that data, but maybe number of friends, whatnot. But it's pretty interesting that the data they're using to score people for if he's worthy of a loan, if he's worthy of X, Y, and Z's.
The company SoFi, Carl told me this, so I'm stealing his thing, but they actually, if you do your application in all caps, they think you're less worthy of getting a loan than someone who types your first name with capital letter and then you do lowercase for the rest of it. So they have a lot of crazy ways that they determine whether or not. I guess these are correlated with whether or not you pay back a loan. So,
All right.
there's a lot going on.
I feel like we've shattered the ice.
Yeah, the ice is broken.
So here's kind of a brief overview of what we're going to be doing today. So we're first going to go over the industry overview. We're going to talk about what is technology, what is coding, what issues we're solving. Then we're going to dive into roles in the industry. If I want you guys to leave with something, I want you to know that you do not need to code if you want to work in the industry. The tech is expanding so rapidly and it's coming into every single industry. So I want you guys to be comfortable with these terms, and if nothing else, if you never write a line of code, you'll know more about the industry and be able to talk to people like me. Then we're going to kind of deep dive into the future of technology, led by Forrest, but we'll all be chiming in. And then we're going to take you through a little project. We're going to have you wireframe an app. And if you don't know what that is, that's fine. And then we're going to talk about some different languages and what they're used for, kind of give you a feel for which language you would use for what problem. And then we're going to dive into React Native and start our coding process. And I built an app, I posted on Slack if you guys want to see what we're going to build. If we do not get to finish it, I've posted the code online, and you are welcome to ask me as many questions as you want on it. I have business cards here. Just email me. I'm an open book. I'll respond. Sorry, Mark. I was really busy. So what is technology? What do you guys think when you hear technology?
Keywords, what comes to mind?
Computers.
Awesome. Cool. So those are all hardware. Those are all examples of hardware, which is definitely technology. But then there's also a whole nother realm, which is software, which is just like code. And those are like websites. And things like your computer and your phone are leveraging software. So hardware is leveraging software to be useful. Like a phone by itself does nothing other than call and text, which is like very minimum. Like all the apps that we use, that's all software. So I got a definition of it, but I'm not really sure. I feel like technology is everything that we're using. Like our society has changed so much in the last 20 years, and it's all from technology. It's a J curve. So technology is taking off, and we want to be on it. So what do you guys think when you hear coding?
Like Java, C++,
Cool.
HTML, stuff like
Like what applications do you think of?
Anything that's
Things
tedious.
like websites.
Anything that's
Yeah,
tedious? Websites?
Simplifying hard tasks.
All of those, and so much more. Coding has seeped into every single industry. So something that I'm doing with Mark's brother Tommy is we are writing Python code to automate people's jobs. So if you have a very tedious task, as Daniel said, we have found a way to automate that task using Python. So like you can save 5 hours a day by writing code that may take you 5 hours total. It's pretty cool. And this is kind of an example of future of technology. But since we're running low on time, we'll cut this section a little bit short and go into the different roles of technology. Actually, go back one. Sure. All right. What are the roles of technology? You can see that slide. So, like, when you guys think of like roles in technology, like different jobs, what do you think of?
IT manager.
I saw project manager.
Project manager. All right, cool. That's not
Developer.
developer.
Software engineer, right? Developer.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Data
Full
analyst.
stack engineer.
Straight off the business card. All right, yeah, we'll go. So you guys actually named a bunch. I was not expecting that. But there are so many roles in technology, it's amazing. So when I thought of technology, when I was first getting in the industry, I was like, there's developers and there's managers. End of story. This is not the truth. There are so many different types of managers, so many types of developers. There's testers that support it. So we're going to go through 6 major roles in the tech industry that I wanted to give you guys a feel for. So,
But there's like 100.
yeah, in total,
Probably more.
there are so many. It's pretty unbelievable. So I kind of ordered it in terms of technical to least technical minus data scientist. Data scientist is another thing. I kind of excluded it from the top half because it's only in some projects. Anyway, so the first one that we're going to look at is a back-end developer. And so a back-end developer, you typically think of them as like a computer guy. They're people that are very familiar with computers, and what they're doing is architecting the product. I feel like I haven't defined what a back-end developer is actually doing yet before I define their characteristics. So the role of a back-end developer is to design a database and basically allows the front-end developer to get the data. So we're going to use Tinder?
Sure.
All right. The example that we're going to use throughout the day is Tinder. So the back-end developer would design a system to match based on attractiveness. So all the 10s would attract each other. And then it would serve that to the front end. And then the front-end developer would take that data and display it to you in a visually appealing form. So what the back-end developer is doing is they're managing everything behind the scenes. So like above ground, below ground, like think of the roots, they're the roots. So typical characteristics of a back-end developer are very analytical, they're very curious, and they also have to be an excellent communicator. So I'm talking to my back-end developer all the time, and we have to talk about what they're going to be passing me, what I'm going to be passing them. And the reason why I'm giving you guys all these characteristics is so that you can kind of think of what role you would fit in best. Any questions about back-end developers? Cool. Next. So the next kind of developer is a front-end developer. And these are people that are building what you see. So they're the tree on top. And when I thought of a front-end developer, all I was thinking is that they do HTML and CSS. But with the way that technology's exploded, it's not the case. The front-end developer is one of the most technical roles that you can have. So what you have to do is your back-end developer gives you some data, but there's so many things going on in a modern site. So like, let's switch from Tinder, let's go ESPN. So let's say that Cavs Warriors is going on and they're updating the score. So I have to design a system that's gonna fetch and make sure that the score is always right. That's not the back-end developer's job, that's the front-end developer. And I have to make it look really cool. So like, let's say that we wanna see a shot chart of the whole floor where like LeBron James is shooting. That's all front-end design. And that is really what's making websites succeed. It's like, how cool is the front end? But the back end also has to be stable. And the question earlier was, what is a full stack developer? This is a term that's thrown out a lot. And what a full stack developer is, someone that can do both. They can design the back end, they can design the front end. And being a full stack developer is great. People on my project love it. I'm a full stack developer, and like whenever there's complaints, it's about one, like a front end or back end person. But if you're full stack, you just build everything yourself. You're not dependent on anyone else. So you can eliminate the communication from both, and you can be your own person. You can be a little hermit, a vampire hermit. Yeah, so typical characteristics of them are very curious, inquisitive. So I would say over 80% of what I've learned in coding is all just from me asking questions, like seeing the code and being, what is this? And just exploring it. It may not even be related to what I'm building, but it's me pushing myself in figuring out what's going on. Attention to detail. So like, you need to be able to tell if that looks wrong. And the best word I can describe for a front-end developer was tinkerer, which sounds like a very odd word, but it's just someone that's always like tweaking with it to make sure that you have the best product possible. Any questions about developers?
You guys feel like you understand the difference between front end and back end? Yeah.
Cool. So software engineers, those all roll into here. All the engineering roles break down to either front end or back end developer or full stack. Cool. So then we have the designers in UI and UX. So these are two different things. So you have a designer and you have a UI/UX developer. And UI is user interface, UX is user experience. And what they are doing is they're building the mock-ups, they're building the wireframes, and they are kind of like, they hand off the wireframe to the front-end developers so they know what to build. And their major role is getting feedback from the user to make sure that it looks right. So like, do you guys remember when ESPN changed their like website to the newer form? Maybe not.
Yes.
Yeah, it was terrible, right? They had a really bad UI UX person. It went from being like an awesome site to me not using it for 2 months. And that is just like a bad example of UI UX because they did not do their proper research. Like everyone that I talked to was like, oh my God, this is terrible. So if they had just gotten better customer feedback and better wireframes, they would have been fine. So typical characteristics, just like an eye for design. That's like a very common phrase that you'll hear amongst designers. And what that means is like, do they know what looks good? Like, do they have a good idea of what the website looks like? Creative, artistic, yeah, and these are all like big jobs. These aren't like it's very important to have a good UI UX person. Any questions?
Especially for an app like Snapchat, right? 160 million people in the world use it, so you need a really good design and easy customer access, right? So.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What is UI and UX?
So UI is user interface and UX is user experience. So that's a good question. I didn't know that for a while and I looked stupid. What's up?
Can you say front end also does like the design of it?
They are the ones that are implementing the design. So like you get the designer will give you the mock-up and it's just gonna be like, we'll show you later, but it's just, you wanna draw? They're gonna give you a wireframe and then it's on you to mimic that. So like you are then creating it. But they're giving you just like a picture, like a static image. And then the front end developer is just like a modern wizard and makes it happen.
I see, so the designer doesn't actually code it?
No. There are languages that designers code in, but it's all just for prototyping. So like no data, and it's really easy to do those. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so this is like a wireframe. Yeah, I could, okay.
Why don't you move it up to the...
Here we go. I'll make this really big.
We're gonna be doing this later, but it's a good example.
So this was an attempt. Obviously, I'm not the most artistic, but
So while he's drawing that, do the designers need to understand all the code too? And
It helps if you understand the basics of code at any level, because then you can communicate with them better. You understand if something's possible. Like I get designers that don't know how to code that just give me completely unrealistic expectations. And they're like, yeah, just do this in like an hour. That's not even feasible.
sure. But so your designer is going to come with a mock-up like this. We call this a wireframe. And they would go to the front-end developer who would actually write code to build this front-end facing software that the user actually sees.
We're going to walk through the whole process.
I don't want to go too far into it right now.
Yeah. Any other questions on designers and UI UX? Does this appeal to anyone? Like, does anyone think they could do this? Yes.
Yeah.
You are a good artist. You would like this. That's
Better than me, I'm sure.
All right, so then you have a product manager. And this is where a lot of people that come from finance and go into tech really succeed. So what they are doing is they really specialize in knowing the product. So they have a mastery of the vision of the product, where it is right now and where it's going in the future. And what they do is they design PBIs. And what a PBI is it's a task. It's just like, hey Mark, build this feature. And it's like a Word doc, we'll say. It's generally in a more elaborate system, but for today we'll say a Word doc. And it just has all the requirements. And what they do is they go in, and they're like, hey, I need you to add a new tab to ESPN. We're gonna add an MMA tab. And then in there, it like lays out all the different things that this tab has to do. And in those requirements, there's a wireframe of what it's gonna look like. And I think that this is one of the most fascinating roles in technology. What was the term you used earlier today?
Developer evangelist?
Yes. There are people making incredible money just by being able to talk to the developers and being able to get an idea of the vision and just like move the product as a whole. So these people are invaluable, and
They oftentimes in companies are serving as translators from the developer tech side to the business end of the company.
Mhm.
You have people who are in sales and marketing and management who they can't talk to developers, they don't understand front end, back end, any of this stuff. And so you'll have people like product managers who literally just sit in a room and they explain to all the business people what's going on, because sometimes tech people can't actually explain in layman's terms what's going on. They use terms that are a little esoteric.
yeah, so say you take like 1 or 2 computer science classes, you're like, wasn't really for me, like I think it's fascinating, but it's just like not my mind. But you really like technology, you really like websites, you really like apps. Be a product manager. It is a great career. I think at some point in my life, potentially, I'll be a product manager. It's kind of like what
I have a
CTO
question
is.
on this.
That's pretty much what CTO is.
So, say like take Snapchat or Instagram. How many product managers do you think each of those companies might have?
Great question. So I'll give you a breakdown of each role, right? So is it cool if I use my current product?
Yeah.
All right, so my current project, it's a massive project. I'll give you a quick background so that we can talk about it throughout the day. What we're doing is we're changing a desktop application to a cloud-based application. It's all in JavaScript. It's my company's marquee product. It was made in 1991. It is potentially the biggest development going on in DC right now. It's 200 people. There are 80 developers. So that's not the majority. You would think it would be a lot more developers. There's probably 40 product managers, 30. Let's say 30 product managers, 30 designers, and then the rest are testers. So testers is a huge industry. Before we go into testing, any more questions? Yeah.
I mean, you're saying that like, if you're looking for a role like product manager, like, before you become a product manager, there's like steps to get into that.
There are junior product managers. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can get to a product manager. A lot of product managers were developers at one point or were testers, but there's also junior product manager roles. So like, for me to give you like all the requirements for a task, like sometimes I get a task that's 4 pages long. Like one person doing that for like 10 developers, that's a lot of work. So you have a junior product manager that supports them. Sarah Hollenbach is a junior product manager, and she transferred from like a data role, and she loves it. It's basically just managing people, but I am glad they have the junior roles for that as well.
So you can, but I would say the best product managers do know how to code. You don't necessarily have to, but it's just one of those things like know your business, right? So if you know how to code, you're going to be able to talk to the people you're managing better.
And it's not even like you need to know like so much code, but if you just know a decent bit, you just can communicate with them so much easier. You can understand their job. You can practice empathy towards them, which is just unbelievable when you're dealing with a person that can empathize with the task that they're giving you. So the next is quality assurance. Now this is something I never thought of before I got into tech, and they are testers. So QA, quality assurance, you'll hear people talk about this all the time. And what they're doing is they're just doing a deep scrub of the product that you have just built. So like, let's say I finish a feature, I check it in, complete it, and then the website's now like live in their environment, right? They are testing for all these different cases. So they really understand what the product is supposed to be at that moment. And if something's wrong, they file a bug, which then I have to fix. So they're catching all the problems before it gets to deployment, which is very, very important.
Right, so if I'm testing Tinder, I'm not getting any matches, something's wrong with the app.
Blame the testers.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so little blur, but those were the 5 main roles in a typical web development environment. But this is the product lifecycle. So we'll start up here. So requirements, gathering, scoping, that's higher management. That's like, we need this product. They think about it and they make a decision. So they're like, we need a new website. And then you go through a process of just market research. You're like, what does this product have to do? This is where product managers are really involved. They have the vision of where it's going to go. They like decide on the features. Like, yeah, we want to display a cool visualization that's very interactive for users so that we can take market share away from other companies. This is where the planning stage is happening. You're designing the future of it. But once you have all those features out, then you go into the prototyping. That's where the designers come in. So then they come in, they work with the product managers, they work hand in hand for a couple weeks, and they are developing the prototypes. And the prototypes are the wireframes that we just showed you, but we'll go deeper into that later. And yeah, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Those prototypes then go to the developer. After the prototyping and the planning stages are all finished, we start to go into development. And that's when they hand off those tasks to the developers. And you're typically on timelines. You do it in what's called a sprint, which is a 3-week period where you are given like 2 or 3 tasks, and you just have to finish them by the end. And then there's a week of testing afterwards. After you're done with your task, you mark it as in testing, and then it goes to the testers. And they test it, find bugs, there's always bugs. And then once QA is like, yeah, we're good, then it finally hits the users, and you get the user feedback. And then the designers come back in and get that UI, UX, that feedback from them to make that website perfect. And yeah, that's the life cycle.
Does front end or back end development happen at the same time, or?
Great question. Yeah, I should have said that earlier. Back end development happens before front end development. It can happen at the same time, but it oftentimes causes a lot of problems. So what a front end developer gets is they get an API, which is basically a URL that's not like public. It doesn't go to a website, but it's a URL that gets data. And the back end developer is making that API. But if that API is changing, it's going to break so much stuff for me. It's like, imagine that you are, I don't know, you're an artist and you're drawing you're painting something. But then like every 10 minutes the painting just drops. Make your job really hard. So that's why the back end development happens. So the back end's stable, and then the front end development happens.
I think one of the best metaphors is a car. You know?
Yeah.
You build like the engine, and then you build the car around it. The engine's kind of the back end, and the front end is what everybody's looking at, which is the car. You know?
So the back end builds it based on the requirements of the wireframe also?
So what happens is there's a design review where there's the front end developer, the designer, the product manager, and the back end developer. And this happens before the back end developer even starts his task. And it's just a conversation that happens between the 4 of them. And the front end developer looks at the mock-up, he's like, I'm expecting this, and the back end developer's like, okay, I'll build it like that, or no, I'll build it a different way. So they all come to a common place where they think that the solution will work. Yeah.
So let's take Tinder for example. Like if you were to draw up Tinder and decide we were going to program Tinder, the front end developer's like, okay, if we swipe right, it'll go this way. If we press the check mark, it'll go to the right. Like if we click on the message button, it'll go over to the messages and you can see your messages. And if you click on one of them, you can go in the message thread and type stuff. Like that's all front end. The back end person is thinking like, okay, if Mark swipes right on Maggie, right, and then she swipes right on Mark, then they've got to go into the same bucket, right? Because now they're matched. But now if Carl swipes left on this girl and she swipes right, they're going in a different bucket because he swiped left. So they're thinking about the engine underneath the whole thing, and the front end developers think about what happens if you like press different buttons or stuff like that.
So to go off the Tinder example, let's say there's something like the top right that's like all of your matches, right? The back end development, like a failure in communication that could happen would be the front end developer was expecting all of their matches to come up so that they can display that in the top right, but only the next person that they're going to match with comes up. That would cause the website to break. So you don't want that.
Right. The final question I have is like in development.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about like agile stuff. You mentioned a little bit about the sprints. Does this whole thing happen in a sprint, or is it just the development portion?
Okay, so this happens. Green.
Cool.
Yeah.
Green within 2 to 3 weeks, like you mentioned.
Yeah, 3 weeks. 3 weeks minimum. Typically, what will happen is actually 2 to 3 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks. So you know, like when you see like in the app store, like you get these like minor releases, and it's like I don't know, adds like small stuff. That's their sprint. That's like they have fixed bugs in that portion, and then occasionally you'll get like a new like bomb. They'll be like V2 is out, and that is like a probably longer sprint where they're building a ton of new features. Yeah, but that's a good question. So these are 3-week cycles that are just like over and over and over again. Anything else? Yeah.
Okay, so whenever I see these life cycle things and it's actually a circle, what happens when it goes around the second time?
Okay, so when it goes around the second time, so deployment and user training, then you're getting user feedback, so then we can really cut out this portion, because like I guess, if this was actually happening, it'd be like a big circle, and then this part would be much smaller afterwards. Because let's say that you get user feedback that they don't like something major about the site. The like high up managers have to approve that. So they come in, they talk about, are we going to implement it, are we not, is that feasible, and then they make new PPIs, and then it goes to the developers, and the cycle goes through. So the first time, this is probably equal share, but as it goes back through and iterates on versions, it gets smaller, the right side does.
And I'll piggyback off that. Is anybody in the room wants to be an entrepreneur? Yeah? All right, so one of the, I guess to expand this life cycle into more of the bigger thing of how a project gets done, the first thing you do is build an MVP, a minimum viable prototype, which is like a base layer app, so you can start getting people on. But, to step away from tech for a moment, the most important thing you can do as an entrepreneur is listen to your users, right? Like you build a product and you go out and you find your users and you say, hey, what do you think? What do you like? What could be better? What's going well? Like what could be different? And then this shapes, right? As you build that minimum viable prototype, you're coming back around here like you were talking about, and then you're coming up again in this analysis, right, from the feedback you're getting and planning, okay, here's the next thing we're going to build based off our user feedback. Here's what we're telling us. Here's the next features we need to implement. Here's where this thing is going. And then you're going into prototyping that and designing it, and then you're building it, and you're testing it, and you're deploying it, and you have maintenance, right? And you go back and you say, hey, we built that. Like, what do you think? And they're like, great, this is so cool. What if it did this? And blah, blah, blah. And you just do the whole thing over and over again. So you keep building out what you're doing. And the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people see a problem in the world, a lot of entrepreneurs see a problem in the world, and they go, oh, okay, I know how to fix that. And they just build a whole product, and then they put it out there, and then nobody wants it, and they don't know why. So what I'm trying to say is, like, if you go out and you actually see not just the problem that needs to be fixed, but also how the people who are going to be using your product want the problem to be fixed, that's how you build a really successful company.
So can I go off that?
Please.
Yeah, so going back to what Daniel said, what Forrest just said is agile development. That is getting user feedback and implementing that back into your app as soon as you can to keep those people on. Previously, it was waterfall, which is create all these PBIs and just dump it. And then you 12 months later, you have another update and you dump it all. Like agile development is you're just constantly iterating. You're making your site better and better each release.
Right.
Every 3 weeks, we'll say.
Yeah.
Cool. So, data scientist. This is a really hot term in the industry right now. This is a completely separate job than a developer or a tester. And what they're doing is they are leveraging code to implement machine learning models to help make the best decision possible. Does anyone other than Daniel know what machine learning is? Mark?
Crickets.
Kinda. Is that the same thing as like deep learning?
Deep learning is a type of machine learning. So what machine learning is it's an algorithm to predict future outcomes. So you guys are using machine learning on a day-to-day basis and you have no idea. Like, let's say, you know those Discover Weeklies from Spotify? That's just a deep learning algorithm. They have identified what songs you like and give you more songs that are similar to that. It's all just an algorithm on the back end. We're gonna really dive into this in a minute, but the implementations of this are like unbelievable. It's like causing me a freeze. It's so unbelievable.
But think about the words, machine learning. It's computers that teach, that are able to learn. So you give them some data, they do something, and then they're able to learn from it. So that you're actually, it's artificial intelligence, man. That's what machine learning is.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen those videos where like you feed a program a bunch of like Bach music and then it'll write its own composition?
Yeah.
I was just telling about this.
Yeah, it's making new music. Like, one thing that's cool, I can't remember if it was the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. So like, it was written by like 100 different people a really long time ago, and they didn't know who wrote which lines. They used a machine learning algorithm to correctly identify who wrote which lines in those documents based on
Everything else they'd ever written.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's right. Yeah, like what portion James Madison wrote, what portion Alexander Hamilton wrote, based off his other text.
Yeah, so like something cool that I took class, 12 weeks, night class, 2 days a week. Like not that much learning, right? I learned I created an algorithm that took in 40 sitcom characters, and then you passed it in an input, and it would correctly determine who said that. So, I don't know, I had like Rick in there, and then so you could be like, I'm not, since it's recorded, I'm not gonna do a line in there, but I don't know, Simpsons, like if you said dough for Homer, it would pop up, like it was very accurate, and this is just something that machine learning can do.
Can you talk about the NBA one, or is that still?
Yeah, sure. I'm currently making an NBA betting algorithm that analyzes trends in the industry. So let's say it's just all right, in the last 3 years, the NBA has opened up this API what an API is, it just allows you to get data. They've opened up this API that gives you so much data about the league, like the number of miles LeBron James has run in a game. And right now, I'm currently tinkering with it, but I'm trying to create a betting algorithm that takes in the lines of the games and finds arbitrage opportunities in the market to win money. And it's all using machine learning. So it's back testing. It's like, hey, if LeBron James has run over 5 miles per game, 5 miles in the last game, and he's in a back-to-back and he's on the road, they lose against the line 80% of the time. And that'd be something very hard to identify without a machine learning algorithm. Like, yeah, you can think about it, but you're like, did that actually work? Like, is it priced in the line?
Mark is essentially harnessing the power of big data, right? There's so much data out there, but if you're able to control it, manipulate it, build stuff out of it, that's where it's most useful. Because there's trillions of bits out there, so much data on everything.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the new cameras they're installing?
Where?
The NBA to create more data on every game.
I did not.
I'll try to find the article.
I heard Steve Ballmer talk though, and what he's trying to do is he's putting 40 cameras in what's the Lakers?
Or the Clippers?
What's their Staples Center? The Staples Center. Yeah, so he's putting 40 cameras around the Staples Center, and what he's trying to do is combine the angles of all these cameras to give you the vision of whatever you want. So then software developers are going to take these different angles, and you can be like, I want to see exactly what Chris Paul's seeing. And it takes the combination of like one camera here and one camera here to see exactly from his head.
But you have to put on VR goggles, right?
No, like
Oh, wow.
on your computer.
Oh, wow.
You can be like, let me see LeBron James. Let me see. You can see exactly what they're seeing. And he thinks this will be feasible within 3 years, which is crazy. Yeah. But it's actually, let's wrap up this section, but this is a really good segue into our next. I'm going to be sending out these slides, so we don't really have to spend much time on here. But I just want to like give you guys some terms of things that I think would make a great developer or someone that would be very successful in the industry. You want to go through these?
Sure. So growth mindset, you guys know what that means. Self-learner, resourceful, curious, determined, right? Sometimes you have a bug that takes 8 hours to fix, so you really got to have some willpower to get through that. problem solver, seeking failure. I mean, if you're building a piece of software, the thing's gonna crash. Like, just, it's part of the process. You gotta accept that.
Going off seeking failure, like the times that I've learned the most in my job, it's when I've been like, what breaks this? Like, what do I do to break this? And then you learn about something completely cool that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, solving problems with no right answer. I mean, you guys can read this. I think the biggest, like intuitively, the biggest point I want to convey is like, if you're gonna build something that has never existed before, it's not like the answer's in the back of a book. You're not just like solving a math problem and then there's an answer. Like, you're gonna have to go and be like, how are we gonna do this? Let's try this. That didn't work. Let's fix it this way. And you just like, you have to teach yourself and you have to learn. Like, a lot of times, I mean, you have to go and read blog posts, you have to use YouTube videos, you gotta go find a coding mentor, like you have to be resourceful and determined and take initiative, and like, it's a real like go-getter kind of job. Like, you can't just sit there and hope that it's all gonna figure itself out. Like, if you wanna build something, you've really gotta just will it into existence kind of thing. So,
I'm not sure how much code we're gonna get to today, but by the end of this seminar, you will have all the resources you could possibly need. I'm providing you with I did all the bad resources. I'm not giving them to you guys. I'm taking the best resources that I found and I'm giving them to you, and they're all cheap -1, which if you really want it, I'll give it to you. I have a password. Yeah, so let's kind of transition and go to the future.
anybody need to like stretch or anything? Everybody good? Yeah. All right, future
Getting
tech.
old.
I know, right? So, we've been talking a lot about technology and now, the different roles in it, but now we're going to talk about the implications that these things are having on the world. So, I know you mentioned some stuff going on in sports and also the music with recreating songs for artists who are not living anymore. But if you guys, if you guys see this list, do any of these jump out at you? Like SpaceX, Elon Musk is trying to help us as a human species populate Mars because we are tearing through the resources on Earth so quickly. He doesn't think if we don't become an interplanetary species in the next couple 100 years that we're not going to make it as the human race. GM, the car company, just invested $500 million into Lyft, Uber's competitor, to work on driverless cars. Because they're already driverless cars on the road. Google has cars that have logged over 1 million miles already, driverless. But I think it's supposed to be within 2 or 3 years that, there won't be taxi drivers or Uber drivers, or maybe there will be. Again, when you get into the futuristic side, trying to say how it will or won't be is a little silly. But there will be the opportunity to ride in driverless cars. You could probably have the opportunity to ride in cars driven by people as well. There'll be a market for that.
So there's a huge trend in the industry of automation. And driverless cars is a great example, right? That's just replacing so many jobs. And this is just software. And it's not just like it's replacing a person to do the same, or just as well. It's so much better. So in the first 1,000 miles that driverless cars went or drove, they had 2 accidents. One of them was a bus hit them because their buses are stupid. And the other one was just I don't know, like a turn. It was like a minor fender bender. But these driverless cars are so much more efficient than us. Like, we are texting while driving. Like, I'm bumping jams and dancing. Like, it's just a robot that it's taking it's a machine learning algorithm. It's taking in inputs and making the best decision possible.
So, and again, the reason we have you guys here today and the reason we think this is important is the way innovation works and the way technology works. Mark mentioned earlier a J-curve. You guys know what exponential growth is? Has anyone ever heard that in finance or anything? Technology, innovation, these things go like this. And we're probably, maybe if this was like, I don't know, 1900, right? Like in 1905, where everybody's riding around a horse and buggy, then that whole industry gets destroyed because automobiles come along, right? And so we're probably like, I don't know, here. But the reason we want you guys here and we think this is so important is this is going to get faster and faster and faster. I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. They're, the things that I see going on in startups, I saw this startup now that just got into Y Combinator. If you get cancer, they take your tumor, break it up into 100 different pieces and test 100 different treatments on your tumor to see which medication works the best for your particular type of cancer. right? Like I went to a 3-day workshop in California with Amazon, and I'm sitting there listening. I don't know if you guys know Fulfillment by Amazon, but 80% of the things that are sold on Amazon's website are not owned by Amazon. So you can go, any of you guys can go open your own Amazon store, and you don't even need to ever touch your product. You can start an Amazon store, order stuff from China, ship it to Amazon, and if people order from your Amazon store, they will fulfill the order out of their warehouses. So you can just have a store on Amazon that people, you buy low in a third world country, get it shipped to Amazon, and if people send it, they'll package it up, ship it to whoever it is, and you just get a check, right? And by the way, Amazon is putting every brick and mortar store out of business. Like if you guys haven't seen it, this is happening. Target, Walmart, like all of them, they're just like losing to Amazon. I mean, it's like what happened. You guys remember Blockbuster? Yeah. And then Netflix came along? Like it's the same exact thing. Like these brick and mortar stores are just getting destroyed by software, and Amazon is doing that. And on top of it, they have Amazon Web Services, right? So that's like a whole another company inside of Amazon, but Amazon's crushing it. Go ahead.
I'll talk about TensorFlow for a second.
Yeah, TensorFlow.
So
Carl can jump in too.
yeah, going back to machine learning, I'm very passionate about machine learning and data science. Something that's come out recently is TensorFlow. And what it is it's a way to design a machine learning algorithm that mimics the way your brain works. So it has neurons, it networks, it's just basically a chain of decision trees. And it is trying to mimic how your brain works, and it is unbelievably good at what it does. They currently have TensorFlow models that are beating hedge fund performance. Like if you ranked all the hedge funds' performance, they're in the 90th percent each month. And if you think about that, like they're not in the 90th percent like total each month. That means like they're number 1 or number 2 or number 3. And this is just an algorithm that does it. This is not we don't need people to train this. The downside to TensorFlow is that you don't understand what's going on. So like if your client was like, what stocks are they investing in? You're just like, it's a black box. I don't know. And that's similar to the driving cars. So like these are all neural networks. They are an algorithm you cannot explain the outcome. And if I had to, mind if I erase this?
Yeah, go for it, please.
So
There's an eraser.
Yeah, right behind you.
so with my hand. Cool.
Why don't you move the board so everyone can?
Perfect. So basically what's going on is it starts with a bunch of different nodes out here, we'll call them. And then imagine each one of these is just like a little light switch. It's like yes or no, and like do I make this decision or not, right? And at the end, you have one output. You're like, yes, do that. And what happens is that these are all different factors that are being passed into, sorry, let me draw this real quick. All right, I'm not gonna finish it. Do you get the idea? Each one of these goes into one of these. Then each one of these goes into each node on the next side. And it goes through until it gets to the final part. And imagine each one of these is just like a yes or a no. Like, do I want to make the decision, do I not? And what a TensorFlow model is doing is it goes through, and at the end, it's like 65% chance yes. And then it goes back through. And it's like, did I make that right? Did I make the decision right? Yes, no, maybe. And what you're doing is you're training your model to apply the correct accuracies. And if this is confusing you, it should. Developers can't explain what's going on. They've just figured out how to train a brain, but with the power of a computer. Like, I can explain to you kind of like what is going on at a basic sense, but even the brightest mathematicians in the world can't explain to you what's going on in the individual models. And that is kind of what's scary about these algorithms. But at the same time, they are so powerful, and they're solving some of the most complex issues in the world. They have an algorithm that will take this tiny little like computer, and it will look at your screen, your like scan for a tumor. And what it does is it goes through each little pixel and determine if it's cancerous or not, and it plugs all the different pixels in there into this model and determines if it's cancerous or not. And it is so much more efficient than a doctor, like incredibly. So this isn't going to necessarily replace a doctor. It's going to replace 5 doctors and replace them with 1, because they're going to have 5 of these models that are just like doing it, and then it will say yes or no, and then the doctors will look at it and approve or disapprove.
Yeah, and so basically what we're saying, so Harvard and MIT have both come out with studies that said there's going to be over 50% unemployment by 2030, which is a little over 10 years from now. But basically, your doctor, your financial advisor, your hedge fund manager, your Uber driver, like all of these things are turning into software, all of them.
And again, it's not that all of it's turning into software, it's just like reducing the number.
Reducing, yeah, exactly. And so we've got, so then there's, I mean, we haven't even talked about augmented reality, but you guys did anyone play Pokemon Go? Like that was the first, when that happened, everyone's like, oh cool, I can catch Pokemon. I like sat in my chair and I was like, this is the first wide scale augmented reality. So augmented reality, you guys know what virtual reality is, where you put on goggles and you go into another world. Augmented reality is when you have technology on top of the current world you're looking at. So like Pokemon Go, you would be looking at this table right here and then catching the Pokemon because it was putting technology on what you're looking at. So like Google Glasses, like the idea of putting on glasses, and then I can look at all of you and I can see your names and maybe how much money you have in your bank account. I don't know, like whatever. But you could walk down the store and walk down the street and have glasses on and be able to see the names. You can see the names of all the different stores, their Yelp rating, little dollar sign, like how much it might cost, that's augmented reality, like putting technology on top of the current world we live in.
Can you guys think of any like cool examples, like anything that you think would be interesting to do with augmented reality in the future?
Maybe like GPS or something like that.
GPS, yeah.
Like on the windshield while you're driving your car.
Yeah, right?
Anything else?
Maybe like Facebook, so if you wanted to, you could show everyone your name.
Your
That is
Facebook
cool.
profile's over here.
Yeah, that'd be
That'd be
sweet.
That would be helpful at a networking event where there's
Yeah,
like 100
totally,
people, right? And you don't want to forget
Oh,
their
that'd be
names.
cool, like with LinkedIn, if you could just like
LinkedIn.
add people on LinkedIn or whatever.
One example that I always use is, imagine like, you guys ever work in your cars? No, most of you guys don't have cars. Guess not. So, imagine that you have to fix your car. Like you're underneath the car, you just put on augmented reality, and you see the mechanic moving his hands the way that you should. And then if your hand doesn't match his hand, then it's gonna like beep. And you can fix your car just by like going and getting the tools and then buying like the $2 tutorial on how to fix your engine. Pretty amazing. And then by that time we'll have a sensor, it'll tell you exactly what the problem is, and it'll tell you exactly what tutorial to buy, and then you can fix your car so easily.
I'd really like to have, like I'm a golfer, right? So if there's a pair of contact lenses or a pair of glasses where I could just stand in my backyard and swing, but then be able to see the golf ball take off, even though there's no golf ball, like I think that'd be really cool. Maybe we should do that.
So, actually, I don't think I've told you yet. I was one of the first people to get Google Glasses. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And I wanted to build Google Glass apps, but I didn't know how to code then, so I couldn't do it. Anyway, my first idea was an augmented reality idea. I wanted to turn any driving range into Topgolf. So you look down, you see your ball, and you hit it, and it goes wherever, and it keeps track of score. And you just pass the glasses between 2 people, and you can play Topgolf in your backyard.
I like that. That's cool.
How about virtual reality? You guys think of any ideas of virtual reality?
Video games.
Video games. All right, they have this crazy video game in Utah, where you and your 4 buddies go into like an empty warehouse, and they have like all these bunkers set up, and you put on the glass, like the thing, and you're like in real war. You're like running around with like not a real machine gun, fake machine gun, and you're like clicking, and it is outrageous. Like it's like as if you're in a real battle, because they've opened up this huge space, and yeah, supposedly the graphics in it are unbelievable. It really does feel like you're in war.
Can you imagine like Lord of the Rings or Zelda or any of those things? Just like that would be so insane. Yeah, go.
I was just thinking maybe if you could play like, instead of like playing 2K or whatever,
Right.
put on the glasses or whatever and actually like be in the game, catching the ball,
Right.
hitting the ball. stuff like that.
We were talking about this last night.
Yeah.
We were at a bar and we were like, you know what would be the best bar ever? Just to have LeBron James and Stephen Curry like playing one-on-one in the middle of the bar as like holograms.
Like life-size holograms. So you're like sitting at this table, and we were like, what if we were at half court and LeBron just like ran right through this table and like went up and dunked it, and we're just like, whoa! Like,
Or like take it back to like the 1960s and have gladiators.
yeah. We're like in big jousting, like right in the middle of the.
So like,
thing. But that would be like, sorry, go ahead.
no, you got it.
Well, so like one of the things is like you could have a table, and so like instead of going, because I mean we've talked about this, like the idea of going to a live sporting event is gotta be out of the picture in the next 5-10 years. I don't know, like that. They're so expensive, and you go and your view's not even that good. Like, what if you could just have little mini LeBron and little mini Steph Curry like on the table, and you guys are all watching them, and so they're playing in real time, but it's just projecting them as a hologram on your table, and so you can watch them like a chessboard.
These aren't just like two technologists that are thinking about this. Like owners of NFL teams are thinking about
Right,
this.
yeah.
I've heard an owner of a basketball team talk about how he thinks that like inside 5 years you're just gonna watch a game and it's just gonna be holograms on your like little coffee table. And like instead of watching it like on a screen, it's just you're gonna see it 3D right there.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think the best part of this stuff is you ever have these things when you're a kid and you're like, wouldn't it be cool if? Like if you guys want to build something like that, you got to go back to that. Like I remember, so the first app idea I ever came out with, we rented a bar out for my 22nd birthday. You came to that actually, yeah, I remember that. And so we're like, there's like 100 people there. And I don't know how I got that many people there. I don't have that many friends. But so there's like 100 people there, and we're all hanging out. And at the end of the night, everybody goes and closes out their tab. And there's like 100 people at the bar trying to get their checks, and this takes like 45 minutes, right? And I'm like, why isn't there an app where you just show up and you check in, and then they run your whole bar tab on the app, and that way you could just like jump in your Uber on the way home and close out your tab and tip from right there, and not have to do this whole, hey, it's 2 a.m., I need to get my credit card back bullcrap. And so like, if I had known how to code, that app would have existed, because I was like really passionate about that. And then I had this idea in college. I actually pitched this to some investors, but I came up with the idea of a New York Shots Exchange. And so it was like an algorithm where all the drink prices in a bar are based on the supply and the demand of drinks. So like a bunch of people are coming in, that you walk in and like a bunch of people are buying Bud Light, and the price of Bud Light's going up because the demand's higher for it. And so you actually have like a stock ticker going around the bar where you can see all the different drink prices, and you have iPads with like the futures market for wheat and all that, and you can see all the analytics for that, and you have the SEC, the bouncers, and their security exchange jackets, right? But like you can just come up with like, I don't know, pretty cool ideas. Like, you know, I want to be able to play pickup basketball with the Warriors or whatever. Like, you know, there it goes.
You were talking about the thing where you're running into the warehouse,
Yeah.
the VR. Have you guys ever tried like the HTC Vive or any of the?
I tried that at the Microsoft store in Pentagon City.
Yeah, what'd you play there?
So I put on the VR goggles. I was in Harry Potter. I was in Hogwarts. Like your whole 360 is of Hogwarts right now. Picking up the cauldron, like I'm pouring potions. I got a sword. I'm like
My
it's
dream of
crazy.
playing Quidditch is going to be real.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like you can't really run around though with it on.
No,
It's
right.
so
You can
scary.
go about like 3 feet to your right, 3 feet to your left because you're connected to the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the goggles on right, but behind the goggles, there's a cord running into the computer.
There's also one of those
Yeah.
at Verizon Center where you can be the goalie. You like see Ovechkin coming at you, and he rips a shot, and you like block it.
So we need VR with Bluetooth so you can get the tag on your
That's gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
That's like your corded phone in the house, and then the big move to the wireless phone. Like that's what's gonna happen.
You're just running into the wall.
Sorry.
You're just running into the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I saw like treadmills, like people on
Right.
a video, like they're like walking, but it's like on a treadmill and they're like not moving anywhere.
I saw one that was like this huge sphere, and so you could run in any direction, and the ball would just roll. Because if you took off this way, it would go that way or whatever. But it was always stationary. But the sphere was like 10 feet tall. So if I like turned around and started running that way, it would just start spinning that way. So you could run in any direction and let it just stay right there.
The possibilities are endless. Like
Kind of career field, like just imagining stuff like that.
just what I described to you. That whole tech cycle, that's making these products.
It's like, where do you want to be in? Sorry, go ahead.
Like developers, they're the ones that are building this. They have all these sorts of softwares that are designed to build these games. This is all just software. So like, generally when people think about tech, they just think of the hardware, but it's like all the software that's building this cool stuff.
And where do you want to be in the process? Like, if you guys can't tell, I'm an ideas guy, right? So I will come up with something that I think will be really cool, but then I got to go find Mark and I partners, right? Because he has the technical knowledge of actually how to build the thing, right? So there's sales, marketing. There's all these other parts of a business also, but you gotta figure out where you want to be. Do you want to come up with a new idea and then have these people who are on your team actually building it, or do you want to be one of the people building it for someone else who has an idea? Like, what is your comparative advantage? What is your lane? Like, I bet you it's different for every single person in this room, honestly. But figure out where in the big picture you want to be in this whole thing. Like, do you want to be the entrepreneur? Do you want to be the developer? Do you want to be the tester? Do you want to be the graphic designer? Like, what is that's like the self-awareness piece. Like, what are you good at and what do you want to do? You know?
And if you don't know, it's safe to learn how to code, because if you know how to code, then you will be able to communicate with all of these people. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just loved coding, so I did it. But,
yeah, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Yeah, but the biggest thing is we want you just attention to be on these things, because this is all happening, and I feel like for some it's not even, it's out of sight, out of mind or something. But when you guys are looking at Uber, or when I saw Pokemon Go and that idea of augmented reality hit my head, because the three biggest things in tech right now really are virtual reality, augmented reality, and machine learning. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So I've been looking really, really specifically for what's happening in virtual reality, augmented reality, and machine learning. And so if you guys are just walking around, if you guys follow us on Instagram, look at our Instagram story today. We went into Panera and I walked in and they've got all these little monitors where you can walk up and order. That used to be someone's job. Now you walk up to a tablet and you put in your order. This is what's happening. So you can walk in and you can just order, or you can walk in and see that and go, oh, there's another situation where it happened. Yeah.
This is another thing we were talking about last night, the 3D printing. This might not happen, but Amazon could be replaced by them having 3D printers they ship to you, and then them just shipping you the order code and the print, and then you just make it in your house. Yeah. So the idea of these warehouses, I'm sure they still will exist for larger items, but if you need a small little floppy disk, that could be 3D printed. There are so many avenues that.
Well, they're even 3D. Didn't they 3D print a bridge?
Yeah.
And they're 3D printing large industrial things now also. So I don't even know how that works. I've actually looked into it. There's some special material that molds together out of it, but when I watch it, I still don't believe it.
They're 3D printing arms and limbs and stuff.
Yeah,
organs like lungs and livers and stuff, kidneys. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was about to say organs.
Oh yeah, that's wild to me. You have a bad heart, and think about there's this whole market for heart transplants. What if they're just oh, here's a new one. Anyway.
So let's go to some industries.
Yeah. So what's the next industry impacted by tech? College education. It is so ridiculously expensive to go to college. I'm sure some of you guys are aware of this. But I keep wondering, why can't they put a 360-degree camera in a college classroom, and instead of you paying whatever, $50,000 a year or $20,000 a year, $10,000 a year, why can't you just put on a VR headset and pay $1,000 a semester to just be able to wear the VR goggles and then watch the class through that camera, and you can turn around and see somebody asking the question, blah, blah, but you don't have to actually be in the room, you don't have to live on the dorm, but you could take a class, and thousands of people could do it. I don't know why that doesn't exist. If anyone wants to invent that, that'd be awesome. Energy, we're gonna have to move to nuclear energy at some point. I don't know when it's gonna happen. I also know this is very scary because no one wants a nuclear power plant on their block, but the fossil fuels thing is clearly a problem.
Thing I want to mention about finance and currency is there's this company called Ripple. So let's say I want to send Daniel money, not on Venmo, I'm sending him $5,000 for a house. That used to take 3 days. They would have to do all these checks and balances, and it would also cost you a wire, which is $40.
Right.
And that just seems ridiculous. So what has happened is there's now this company out in San Francisco called Ripple. And Ripple is a cryptocurrency that only banks have access to, and some investors. And what it does is that, like, let's say PNC to BB&T, they buy and sell that cryptocurrency instantaneously, so the money just changes hands. So like, there's no risk. And what used to take 3 days to do and $40 is free in instant. And banks are now doing this, and you'll start to, once the public realizes what's going on, you'll start to see the fees go down. But until that happens, probably.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I don't know why there isn't a peer-to-peer currency. Like, instead of us trading dollars, because then we have to pay income tax on it, like, can't, like, you do me a favor and then I get a credit, and that credit is worth something to Sam, and so I can pay him that credit. Like, if any of you guys want to invent a currency that is, like, backed on the people, like the trust system of the people involved, like there's an honor system, and then you have a currency where you're exchanging like labor hours and people could have a rate per labor hour, like that would be really awesome because you wouldn't have to pay income taxes on it. Healthcare, medicine.
What are some
fashion,
industries?
Entertainment. Have you guys seen in Tokyo they have like holograms and concerts? People literally go to a concert to watch a hologram in a concert. Like,
They had a hologram of Tupac at Coachella.
yeah, Michael Jackson.
Yeah, yeah.
So like people are coming back. Like,
What's important to start thinking about is like, what industries do you think that you could affect
Right.
with technology? Like, there's all these new things that we just exposed to you. You know, like, what are you gonna do? What industry do you think?
It all starts with an idea, right? You don't have to be a master coder. You just got to come up with an idea.
I mean, you've already said you're interested in sports, right? So you know, you kind of got a feel for where you are. But this requires like, you know, little thinking about what's important. The point is literally every single industry. Like, there's not one that's going to be untouched. Like, that's the point. This is happening everywhere. It's just what's happening. So wherever you guys want to be, whether it's in sports or entertainment or healthcare, medicine, law, finance, like.
If you want some examples of industries that MIT and Harvard think that all the jobs will be replaced, I'll give you a website, and they give estimates of the reduction of jobs. So those are industries they think are ripe for destruction.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens, I think, like culturally also. Like, one of the biggest ways we get meaning out of life is out of our work. So when machines take all these jobs, I think we're going to have a little bit of an identity crisis as a human species, because what's everybody going to do with their time? And also, have you guys heard of universal basic income? Has anybody ever heard of that? Because that's another concept you should look up. A lot of people are talking about whether or not people should just get a standard amount of money every year, like whether or not they work. So this is something that a lot of times if you're going to be in a conversation where you're talking about these things, like I would look up universal basic income, because people are going to ask, well, how's anybody going to make money if there are no jobs? And that's one of the suggestions. I'm not saying it's the right one, but it's a fair question. The other thing is, if computers are doing all this, it's just going to be silly cheap. I mean, think about it. You guys are all carrying around a supercomputer in your pocket now. Like, that iPhone is more powerful than the first computer that was ever made, and everybody has one. So these innovations in technology make all of us wealthier. You might be able to take an Uber from here to Florida with no driver, right, for like $50.
So,
yeah.
Going back to this, you said like our phones are now more powerful than the first ever computer. This is actually how they wanted to first start all like computer logic, was with neural nets, but it wasn't powerful enough. And now the hardware is powerful enough that you can do this. And so you see these models popping up everywhere. It's like with the J-curve that we're talking about, now we're going to be able to apply this to all these different fields and see where it takes us.
And this is affecting all of us. Like, if you're a freshman in college, think about what you're going to major in. Like, the job you think you might be preparing for might not exist when you graduate. Or like, we just got out of college and we put all that time and effort and energy in, and now it's like that's what the whole self-learner, like, blah, blah, blah is. It's like, even if you get involved in tech, the programming language you learn might not be the programming language you need a few years from now. So no matter what, everybody's got to kind of get on board with this idea that you're going to be learning for forever and constantly having to reinvent yourself and remarket yourself.
So we're going to break for lunch in about 13 minutes.
Yeah.
But is there anything that we
Is this
want
scary or exciting or like
Exciting.
all of them?
Exactly.
Both.
Like,
Definitely both.
Yeah.
It's a look into the future, right?
One of the things, another big thing is the idea of singularity. Has anyone ever heard that word?
Yeah.
You know what it is?
Hold on. It's like, it's a point where after it, like, technology's way better.
It's the point in time when computers are going to be smarter than human beings. And so there's a big question about, like, in the moral sense and the ethics sense, like what's going to happen when these machines that we're building are smarter than we are. And that's supposed to happen in 2042 is the year that's expected to happen. So that'll be in our lifetimes also. And so there's a lot of questions about whether or not we're going to have to put computer chips into our nervous system and actually be able to be some sort of like hybrid with the technology. Like if the technology smarter than us can kill us, like Elon Musk says that the #1 existential threat we have facing humanity outside of our planet that we're destroying, right, is artificial intelligence, because he thinks it's just going to have really bad results. But anyway.
Pretty crazy.
Huh?
Pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy, yeah. I mean, we're going to build these computers, and again, it grows faster and faster and faster. So as you, it's also worth considering what are the implications of all this going to be. Like, is everyone going to have to put, like, again, Elon Musk is coming up with this idea of, what's it called, a neural lace, like a thing you put on top of your head that is like they're calling it a third lobe of the brain, like it's a computer on your brain.
Jesus, I did not know that.
They're talking about putting chips into humans now, so you walk around with a chip and it contains all your health information and everything when you go to the doctor.
I'm wondering if there's ever going to be a computer chip in your nervous system, and we could actually have, imagine if you could upload your entire consciousness to the cloud, and we could have a collective consciousness where, like, in the cloud there was everything everyone knows. Like, and you could just pull from that, like everything. People are saying this is going to make us smarter, funnier, healthier, all these things. Just like, you know, you would know a joke to say, like, right on the spot. Like, you know. But anyway, so what do you guys think? I know that was a lot, but.
So kind of the structure that we had was first tell you about all the roles that you can possibly have, kind of show you some industries to get you excited about what's going on, and yeah, so like now you can apply, like you can be like, what part of this do I want to be in? Do I want to be in one of these specific industries? Like, what ideas am I thinking of? And you know the back end, like you know kind of the idea of the industry, like all the roles, so you can talk to people, you can learn more. We're gonna go through kind of more technical stuff after lunch, but we wanted to get the more theoretical stuff to get you excited about what's going on.
Good stuff.
Cool.
Anything from anybody, or should we break?
We're good.
Cool. All right.
What time is it now?
Yeah, what time is it?
50.
So since we don't have Wi-Fi, should we all go?
All right, who's got PCs?
Yeah, how many Macs do we have? How many PCs do we have?
PC. 3 PCs. How many Macs?
Four PCs.
My
4
Mac guys.
PCs. And 3 Macs? You got a computer with you?
Yeah.
What do you got? C3, 4 PC. So 1, 2, 3, 4 PCs and 4. No, you have a PC too, right? So 5 PCs, 3 Macs. Is that right? You got a Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So 3 Macs, 5 PCs. Yams. All right.
All right, we'll do what we can.
Yeah.
That's me. Yeah.
So should we all go to Panera and go download the stuff?
Okay.
And then go eat lunch?
So to give you, I guess we'll talk about this real quick. The language that I'm teaching you guys today is called React Native. And what it is, it's a language made by Facebook. We're going to go more into detail about this later on. But it was designed for iOS development, so Macs. And they are getting it so that PCs can now use it, but it's a lot harder. Like, there's a lot more things we have to download.
It just takes a ton of time to set up.
Yeah. And I was hoping that most people have Macs.
So the question is, do you guys want to, I mean, it could honestly take an hour to set up PCs. So the question would be, do you guys want to try and do that, or would you like to look on to another computer? I'm trying to even